We live and move and have our being. Acts chapter 17, verse 28. There were flowers of every imaginable size and color along the path. There were banks and banks of flowers. Some were the size of a dinner table. There were roses that looked about 4 feet across and might have weighed 50 pounds on earth. And as I walked, the flowers faced me. The air was filled with their aroma, and they were all humming. I asked if I could pick one to smell, and I was told that I could. It was wonderful. When I put the flower down, it was immediately replanted and growing again. Again, there is no death in heaven. As I walked along the golden pathway, I noticed the sky. It was rosette pinkish in color, but it was also a crystal clear blue. And there were clouds in the sky, clouds of glory. When I looked more closely at them, I saw that the clouds were actually thousands of angels and thousands upon thousands of people walking in groups and singing. They were strolling in the sky. There was a park which had benches where you could sit and talk to others. These benches were everywhere. They were made of some type of solid gold, but their shape reminded me of wrought iron lawn furniture. People were sitting and talking and praising God. They were having a wonderful time talking with people who had just come through the veil. Others were there in great groups waiting for their loved ones to come through. All the people there were in preparation of loved ones coming into heaven. I heard someone say, "When he sees his mansion, he is going to shout glory." Something just went all through me, and I thought, maybe God has some place for me up here in heaven. The trees of heaven. The beautifully manicured park was filled with huge, striking trees. They had to be at least 2,000 feet tall, and there were many different varieties. Some I knew, others I had no idea what species they were. But they were tall and strong, with no dead branches or limbs. There was not even a dead leaf. Some of the leaves on the trees were shaped like huge diamonds. One tree that caught my attention was crystal clear and huge. It seemed to be miles and miles across. I was told that it was a diadem tree. Each leaf on this tree was the shape of a teardrop, like a crystal chandelier. And there was a continual sound of chimes coming from the leaves as they brushed against one another in the gentle breeze. The beautiful sound of crystal. When I touched them, there was a glow as the sound emanated from them. But there was more. Each leaf, each limb, the entire tree gave off a tremendous glow with all the colors that were in the glory cloud. The tree glowed with sound and light. It was also aflame with glory. The flame started in the root and went all the way through the branches and out into the chandelier-like leaves. The tree exploded in a cloud of glory, a beautiful light. And it exploded with sound, an unbelievably beautiful sound. The diadem tree was glorious. Under it were what looked like tens of thousands of people worshiping. They were not worshiping the tree, but only God. The further I went toward the throne of God, which the path was leading me to, the more trees I saw. Each was as glorious as the diadem tree. When I went up to what I thought was a walnut tree, I was told to take and eat. The fruit was pear-shaped and copper-colored. When I picked it, another fruit instantly grew in its place. When I touched the fruit to my lips, it evaporated and melted into the most delicious thing I had ever tasted. It was like honey, peach juice, and pear juice. It was sweet, but not sugary. My face was filled with the juice from the fruit. But nothing by any means can defile a person in heaven. Immediately the juice from the beautiful sweet tree's fruit ran down my throat like honey. My face was just covered all over with this beautiful, wonderful liquid that the fruit had turned into. Whatever it was in that atmosphere of heaven, it was also instantly gone. It was a wonderful experience, and I can almost still taste that delicious juice after all this time. There were also trees whose leaves were shaped like hearts and gave off a beautiful aroma. I was told to take a leaf and smell it, and so I did. Then a voice told me that it would give me strength to carry on. The moment I smelled the beautiful fragrance, I was strengthened. I had an overpowering urge to see Jesus. "Please, let me see Jesus," I said. 3. The Lamb's Book of Life. He who overcomes will, like them, be dressed in white. I will never blot out his name from the book of life, but will acknowledge his name before my Father and his angels. Revelation chapter 3, verse 5. The angel walking with me gestured and said, "Behold the wall." The wall was tall, and it looked as if it was a mile away. Suddenly I was at the wall. Travel in heaven seems to be at the speed of thought. "Behold the books." Then the angel said, "Behold the books." On the left, a book was sitting on golden pillars that served as a giant easel. The book had to be a mile high and 3/4 of a mile wide. It was huge, and angels turned the pages of the book. On the right was another book, which was the Lamb's Book of Life. Its pages were turned, and I was lifted up to see what was written on the open page. There, in 3-inch golden letters outlined in crimson red, was my name. Richard, of the family of Sigmund, servant of God. Alongside my name were the dates of my birth and my conversion. The crimson red outline on my name was the sacrificed blood of Christ. Nothing impure will ever enter it, the holy city, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Revelation chapter 21, verse 27. I went up to the wall and saw that it was filled with all types of precious jewels, jasper, sardonyx, diamonds, yellowish gold emeralds, bloodstone diamonds. The wall was made of some type of stone material that gave off a sensation. When I touched the wall, it caressed my fingers. Gates with tongues of fire. I was then told to go to the gates. The gates were huge. They seemed to be 25 miles high, and there were 3 tongues of fire on each gate, representing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The gates were made of gold, which was fashioned similarly to wrought iron, curved on the top with vertical stringers and filigree between the stringers at the bottom. The gold represented the great mercy of God. Thousands of individual pathways came to the gates. Floating on air and in crystal clear water. Through the gate along my pathway were many beautiful houses, mansions. They had many verandas on the 2nd, 3rd, and even 4th floors. People would casually stroll off the edges of their verandas and effortlessly float to the ground. Or they would stay in the air. It seemed they could do either. The laws of physics don't seem to apply in heaven. I was taken to a small lake where I noticed that people were out in the water and even floating below its surface. There were no waves on the lake, and the water was crystal clear and beautiful. It seemed even clearer than the air is here. The lake appeared to be bottomless, and it gave off a glow from the interior. I don't know what was down there, but it was glorious. Glory soil? Glowing rocks of jewels? Again, I don't know. but the water was alive. I didn't go into the water, but I did dip my hand in it. The water had texture to it, and like the wall of stone, it caressed my hand. It was refreshing, like putting your hand in chilled 7-Up, although it was at room temperature. A glorious experience. People approached this water without fear. I saw what looked like millions of people down in the water walking, floating hand in hand, or even swimming. They could breathe under the crystal clear water. When they came out of the water, they were instantly dry. Since there is no death in heaven, no one can die even when underwater. Children can play in the water without fear of drowning. There are no dangerous water bugs or snakes. Nothing in heaven can harm you. I later learned that at the throne of God there are 4 rivers. This lake is fed by one of the rivers, which is hundreds of yards wide and very deep in some places, but shallow in others. As the river flows out from the throne, the water begins to multiply. Jesus seemed to be everywhere. The golden pathway led to buildings further ahead. Suddenly I was there. The pathway stopped at a street made of a clear substance. It was like a jewel intermingled with strands of gold. This road looked like a main street in a town. I was then taken to a group of people, and I noticed them watching my wonderment at the sights I saw. Every now and then, as I traveled down the pathway, I would get a glimpse of Jesus just a little way ahead. He was talking with people, loving them, hugging them. They were looking at him with such expressions of adoration and worship that I wanted to be there just to fall at his feet. Yet the angel would say, "Just a little further on down the path, you have an appointment with God, and you will meet with the Lord." The anticipation was bubbling up within me. I just wanted to be with Jesus, but I knew I had to wait. In heaven, everybody has a turn to see Jesus directly, and therefore nobody is anxious about it. They are excited about the thought of seeing him, but they are respectful of other people's turns to meet with him. Nobody tries to crowd ahead of anyone else. I felt great tranquility because I knew that when it was my turn, it would be a glorious moment for all eternity. I would join with the others who, in that moment of ecstasy, would get to see Jesus and talk with him. Yet this was the remarkable thing. Though I could see Jesus ahead of me, I could not say that he was not also right behind me. He moved at what seemed to be the speed of light. There was only one of him, but Jesus seemed to be everywhere at the same time, and I just wanted to be with him. 4. Children and babies in heaven. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew chapter 19, verse 14. No child who dies is ever lost. Every one of them is with Jesus and enjoys his presence. Many times I saw the Lord draw little children to himself. He would hug them and talk with them. He seemed to be so refreshed that they were with him. A little girl who looked about 8 years old and had beautiful blonde hair came up to me. She knew me, and I recognized her too. I remembered that she had died of cancer. I think she was some kind of ambassador in heaven, because all she did was go from group to group and sing glorious songs. "Brother Richard, do you want to see what I can do?" she asked. She proceeded to mess up her beautiful hair that she had lost when she had suffered from cancer. When she stopped, it immediately returned to perfection. There are no bad hair days in heaven. Special abilities of children. Then she said, "Brother Richard, would you like to hear me sing?" She started singing in the most beautiful, powerful soprano voice you could imagine. Heaven's ambassador was singing, and the choirs of heaven joined in. This was the most beautiful song I had ever heard, and the girl's talent was especially remarkable because of her apparently young age. She was not the only child I saw. There were many others, each with abilities far greater than any adults on Earth. If you had been a good singer while you were on Earth, then you could sing millions of times better in heaven. This little girl's ability exceeded that of anyone I had ever heard on Earth. In one place in heaven, I saw a young boy sitting before a piano that seemed to extend 100 feet in every direction. It looked like a grand piano, yet in the middle of it stood an upright harp. Although he was not yet playing, this young boy was sitting there, and it was in an open place like a courtyard beside some homes. Then he played the most beautiful music. It was a little like Bach, a little like Brahms, and a little like Beethoven. Yet I cannot tell you what the song was. When I left heaven, I left the tune there. But there was music, and there were words to that song, and people joined in. While this child was playing the piano, the angels were standing at attention. Some had their arms raised, worshiping God. The notes of the song that this little boy was playing were reverberating throughout heaven. Choirs were joining in. It was unbelievable. It was glorious. And this little child was leading all of it. I asked, "How can this be?" One of the angels said to me, "They are playing this song because you are here. They want you to know that in heaven, even a child can learn things that are impossible to learn while on earth." I was told, "Look at the little child." As I looked at him, I noticed that he didn't appear to be older than 7 or 8 years of age. He turned to me, smiled, and waved his right hand while continuing to play with his left. Then he stopped. The piano stopped and the harp stopped. The people stopped. Everyone started to smile and praise the Lord. The song was over, but I could somehow hear it echoing. The boy said, "I can play anything I want to." There was a beautiful children's choir in heaven. Again, the children had singing and musical capabilities far beyond anything you could imagine on earth. Every child could sing. I was told that the talents and abilities that God ordained for them from birth were, again, magnified millions of times over in heaven. At one point, I saw a child who looked about 5 years old sitting at an easel painting a picture of the countryside. He would tell the paintbrush the color he wanted, and the paintbrush would turn to that color. The boy would say, for example, "No, darker. The tree must be darker." The paintbrush would turn to that color, and he would just wipe it across the canvas one time, and the tree would appear. In heaven, all things are possible.